And if you'll state your name, who you're with, and proceed.
I'm Jean Wagner, and I'm representing my family, who one day was surrounded by 35 armed agents, our house stormed, and our property taken. And what we found out later, on was sealed search warrants because of the Patriot Act. You're not allowed to know why they have a search warrant. It was a sealed arrest warrant because under the Patriot Act, you're not allowed to know the reason for it. They just tell you, they don't have to tell you. The Constitution is out the window. I'm also an attorney, so finding out that could happen to anybody in this country was very disturbing. We've lost faith in our country. The charge that my husband faced was not having the proper business license. No guns, no drugs, no terrorism. It's simply not having the proper business license. But the financial incentive to law enforcement to seize property is so great that they are making crimes come under forfeiture law so they can go in and take your property. We're a fairly wealthy family. And for 9 months, they followed us, including, the Boulder County Sheriff we spend Christmas with at our neighbor's house. We eat every week with the Boulder County Sheriff's Office in Parkway Cafe. They know our family. They know we're not criminals. My husband's a 52-year-old electrical engineer. My daughter's 8 years old and goes to a private school. They don't care about justice anymore. It's about funding their own operations. 20 years ago, before civil forfeiture got out of hand, they would have called or issued a cease and desist order or said, go get a business license at the most. But these civil forfeiture laws is actually violating not only individual rights, but it's violating the government's right to have our checks and balances and to have our legislature decide what laws should be sought, what should law enforcement be seeking, what should be going after. Do you spend hundreds of thousands of law enforcement dollars spying on someone for not having a business license? Obviously, the answer should be no. But the financial incentive is so great that law enforcement does it anyway. And when they get this equitable sharing, she mentioned Holder and the federal government saying DOJ is not going to get involved anymore. It doesn't matter what Holder says, even though he's Attorney General, because the funding does not come from the legislature anymore. It's coming from these seizures. And I talked to an hour today on an expert on this out of New Mexico who's been following this for the last 20 years. And she's telling me that Holder's statement means nothing because the federal prosecutors and federal law enforcement just ignore him because their funding no longer comes from Congress. It comes from the property they seize. So the less funding coming from Congress, the more often they're seizing property to fund their coffers. And the state law enforcement likes it because they need money to run their businesses. But they should be getting the funding from the state legislature, not from stealing property from citizens. And the other thing I'm going about running out of time, but the $50,000 is not high enough, and I can tell you why if you want to know. It has to do with CAFRA and the cost of attorney's fees to get your property back. It's way over $50,000. So they take your property, it's $50,000 just to get an attorney to get through the process in the state level. And this is Zoe. Come over here on my lap, honey. Zoe, tell them your name and how old you are.
My name is Zoe, and I am 8 years old.
Okay, what did the...
Actually, I'm sorry. You're gonna have to let me run the committee.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, Zoe, great to have you here. We don't often have people your age, so it's great to have you come testify. Your job is to, in 3 minutes or less, just give us your story. I'm guessing you and your mom have talked it over, so just go ahead and let us know what it is you'd like us to hear. And pull that microphone, if you would, close to you, and we'll let you know if we can't hear you. Go ahead.
Because of what happened to our family, I no longer say the Pledge of Allegiance at school. None of it is right anymore. When they raided our house, they took the money out of my little elevations envelopes, and they wrecked everything everywhere. They took all the pictures of me. They stole some of our computers, so they took all my pictures and all the videos taken of me. I am scared of law enforcement.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you for being here. It's brave to come talk to us. Appreciate that. Committee, do we have any questions for either Zoe or Ms. Wagner? Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of questions because I didn't catch all the details. So one, what is the business license that your husband was supposedly not having? What business?
He buys and sells Bitcoins for himself, and they're saying he needed a money transmittal business license to do that.
It's a hobby.
It's a hobby. Yes, it is.
Senator Lindberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And what is it that was actually seized? And if you could add, I didn't get the date as to when that occurred.
It's October 14th, 2014, so it's been recently. There's been an uptick in civil forfeitures. And they took, in cash, I think around the house, and from our safe where we keep some on hand, they ended up taking about $30,000 in cash. And they took $600 from her, which she can't get back because it costs $5,000 to hire an attorney. And it's only worth $600, so she'll never get it back. They took all of our computers, cell phones, all digital cards, like out of your camera. You know, it has your child's pictures on them. They took all the digitals out of our cameras. They took all the DVDs that had all of her home movies on them, all her plays she's been in. They took her entire digital life was taken. They took 700 Bitcoins, which are valued considerably. That's worth quite a bit of money. And they took the computers. That's what they took.
Senator Lindberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one final question from myself, and that is, has your husband been charged with any criminal activity, with any crime?
That's the crime.
Wagner.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's what's considered the crime, is to not have a business license. And just for your edification, they don't have to be drug, guns, or terrorism laws that you get this done with. If you make a clerical error on a medical form, a doctor's office can have their stuff seized. You know, it doesn't have to be what you're thinking of in your head as the crime. It can be paperwork. It's paperwork. People have their things seized over paperwork.
Thank you.
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So was your husband charged with not having a business license? Did he have to go to court and defend himself?
It's still ongoing. They recognize they should probably dismiss with prejudice, but at this point we're in what we call the extortion phase. How much money will you let us keep, and then we'll dismiss the charges.
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, and I misunderstood, or I was not able to understand. You say Bitcoins?
Yeah, most people don't know about them. It's a hobby a lot of geeky engineers get into.
Is it B-I-T, bit?
Yeah.
And where did this occur? Where do you live?
Boulder County.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think you mentioned there were 38 agents that surrounded your house?
35 with guns drawn and riot gear on.
I'm just kind of curious, what agents? Agents of the federal government or who?
Ms. Wagner.
Everybody. We had the post office. Turns out the post office arrests people sometimes. We had U.S. Marshals. We had county sheriffs. We had DEA, even though no drugs were involved. We had Homeland Security. Everybody wanted their finger in the pot because everybody gets the money under equitable sharing.